Stop before you scroll away. This wasn't just another playoff game. No. This was war. Because Game 3 between the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder just went completely off the rails. Tempers flared, bodies collided, words were thrown, and for a few scary seconds, we all thought the benches were about to clear. So buckle up, because I'm about to take you back to that very night. Back to the building where the air was so thick with tension, you could cut it with a knife. Because what went down in that arena, you're going to be talking about for years to come. Picture this. It's late May 2026. The second round of the NBA playoffs are in full swing. And right now, it's all coming down to this. The San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Two young, hungry, and downright scary teams, deadlocked at one game apiece. Game 1, OKC snatched it on their home floor, behind a vintage Shai Gilgeous-Alexander masterclass. But Game 2, down in San Antonio, the Spurs punched right back, behind the towering presence of Victor Wembanyama and a gutsy fourth quarter from Devin Vassell. The silver and black tied the series right back up 1-1. So naturally, all eyes shifted to Game 3. Because now, we were going back to Oklahoma City, back to Paycom Center, one of the loudest, rowdiest, most intimidating buildings in the entire league. A place where the Thunder fans in their sea of blue and orange have made grown men crumble. A place where you don't just play the Thunder, you survive them. But the Spurs, they weren't afraid. Not one bit. They had the best young player in the world, a chip on their shoulder, and they knew if they stole one on the road, they'd be in the driver's seat of the series. So as tip-off drew closer, something just felt different. You could feel it. The second you turned the broadcast on, you saw it. The players were stone-faced, locked in, staring holes through one another during warm-ups. There was no smiling, no playful daps, just pure, unfiltered focus. And if you looked closely, oh boy, the jawing had already begun. Victor Wembanyama, all 7 foot for him, was casually knocking down threes from the logo. But every single time he made one, he'd glance over at Chet Holmgren. And Chet, the Thunder's own unicorn, would just smirk and nod his head, almost as if to say, "All right, big fella, I see you, but you're in MY house now." Meanwhile, on the other end, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the league MVP frontrunner, was going through his usual silky smooth warm-ups. But he had his eyes glued to Stephon Castle, the Spurs' young defensive stud, who had the impossible task of chasing him all night. And those two were already exchanging some not-so-friendly words. Nothing crazy yet, but enough to let you know, oh, this was personal. The fans were losing their minds. The PA announcer could barely be heard over the roar. And as the final horn sounded for warm-ups, both teams huddled up, and in that moment, you knew this wasn't going to be a game. This was going to be a fight. Tip-off. Here we go. The first quarter started off like a heavyweight boxing match. Both teams throwing haymakers. Shot for shot. Stop for stop. No one was willing to give an inch. SGA, as he always does, got to the spots with ease. That signature floater? Cash. That mid-range pull-up? Bottom of the net. But the Spurs weren't backing down. Wembanyama was controlling the paint on both ends, swatting shots into the third row, and then gliding down the floor for an easy dunk. But the temperature? It was rising by the minute, because every single possession, there was a bump, an extra shove, a hand lingered a little too long. And the officials? They were letting them play early, maybe a little too much. Then it happened. First little spark of the night. About midway through the first quarter, Chet Holmgren set a bone-crushing screen on Devin Vassell. A legal screen, but he held him. Vassell, frustrated, shoved Chet in the back. Chet turned around and gave him that look. You know the one. Do you want to go? Look! Both benches stood up. The refs quickly swooped in, gave offsetting technicals, and cooled it down. But the message was sent. This was going to get ugly. And the first quarter? OKC up by 3. 28-25. But the real story? The fire had been lit. Second quarter rolls around, and the physicality somehow went up another notch. The Thunder came out with a purpose. Jalen Williams was bullying his way to the rim. Lou Dort was doing what Lou Dort does best, annoying the living daylights out of whoever he was guarding. But the Spurs kept answering. Keldon Johnson came off the bench and immediately provided a spark with back-to-back tough buckets. And Wembanyama? Good Lord. He hit a step-back three over Holmgren and then proceeded to wag his finger. The Paycom center went silent for a split second. You could hear a pin drop, but that silence didn't last long because SGA took that personally. On the very next possession, he blew past Castle, got into the paint, and absorbed a hard foul from Jeremy Sochin. But instead of going to the floor, SGA popped up and got right in Sachin's face. Just touching, words being spit like venom. Sachin barked right back. The crowd was on their feet, screaming. Refs came rushing in again. Another double technical. But the players had to be separated. You could see the frustration building. The Spurs bench was heated. Coach Mitch Johnson was pleading with the refs for consistency. And OKC's Mark Daigneault, he was chewing his gums so hard, I thought he was going to break it. Halftime, OKC leads 54-51. But more importantly, the officials had a long talk in the locker room because everybody knew the second half was about to explode. Oh boy, the third quarter. This is where it all went wrong. Or, depending on how you look at it, this is where it became legendary. Both teams came out halftime like caged animals. The energy was nuclear. But 5 minutes into the third, we got the moment, the one that changed everything. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had the ball, high on the wing. Stephon Castle was draped all over him. SGA, being the magician he is, crossed over, stepped back, and drained a deep three-pointer. As he was running back on defense, he let out a roar, and he did a little shoulder shimmy towards Castle. Castle? He took offense to that. So on the next Spurs possession, he drove hard to the basket. SGA came over to help. And then contact. A little too much contact. Castle went down hard. The whistle blew. Flagrant foul 1 on SGA. But Castle immediately hopped up and got in SGA's grill, pointing his finger, yelling. SGA shoved him back. That was it. The dam broke. Players from both sides sprinted towards the scene. Wembanyama came storming in, trying to protect his teammate. Chet Holmgren rushed to SGA's aid. Bodies were pushing, shoving, screaming. Coaches were holding players back. The fans were throwing their hands up, going absolutely ballistic. For a solid 30 seconds, it looked like the benches were going to clear. It was scary. It was intense. It was everything you don't want to see, but couldn't look away from. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the officials restored order. The result? SGA was assessed a flagrant one, Castle a technical, and both teams were given a stern warning. But the damage was done. The fire was now an inferno. The rest of the third quarter was a blur. Technicals kept flying. Every call was booed. Every non-call was booed louder. Wembanyama picked up his fourth foul, sent him to the bench with a look of disgust. And SGA? He was playing possessed, like he wanted to take over the world. End of the third. OKC up 82-78. But the game was no longer about basketball. It was about pride. Fourth quarter. The final 12 minutes. Do or die time. And boy, oh boy, did these two teams leave it all out there. The Spurs, refusing to go quietly, came storming back. Devin Vassell caught fire. Three-pointer after three-pointer. Wembanyama, despite his foul trouble, checked back in and immediately changed the game. A block, a three, and a ridiculous hook shot. Tie game. 90-90 with 5 minutes to go. The Paycom Center was shaking. You could literally feel the building rumble beneath your feet. Every possession was life or death. Then, with 3 minutes left, another flashpoint. Lou Dort, the king of dirty plays, gave Wembanyama an extra shot to the ribs while boxing out. Wemby turned around and shoved Dort. Technical foul on Wembanyama. That was his fifth foul. He had a foul out of the game. The Spurs bench looked like they had seen a ghost. Their defensive anchor, their everything, was gone. OKC smelled blood. SGA went to work. He drew a foul, hit both free throws. Then a silky step-back jumper. Then another floater. The lead was back up to 5 with a minute to go. But the Spurs? They still had fight left. Stephon Castle drove coast to coast, finished through contact and a foul. 3-point play, 98-96. Thunder up, 30 seconds remaining. Timeout OKC. The entire arena held their breath. Ball in SGA's hands. The clock ticking down. Castle was all over him. SGA crossed, spun, and was double-teamed. He kicked it out to Jalen Williams. Williams pump faked, took one dribble, and let it fly. Clank. Off the rim. Rebound Spurs. 10 seconds left. The Spurs raced down the floor. Vassell pushed it. He found Keldon Johnson in the corner. Johnson squared up. Released. The buzzer sounded. The ball was in the air. It hit the back rim, bounced up, kissed the front rim, and then rolled out. The Paycom Center erupted. Thunder players dogpiled on each other. The Spurs players collapsed to the floor in agony. Final score, 98-96. Oklahoma City Thunder take Game 3 in an absolute thriller. But the final buzzer wasn't the end of the story. Oh no, because as the players were shaking hands, the tension still lingered. SGA and Castle were still going at it, having to be pulled apart by their teammates. Wembanyama, sitting on the bench with his head in his hands, was staring daggers at the officials. And Lou Dort, he was doing his usual troll job, smirking and clapping in the Spurs' faces. The post-game interviews were spicy, to say the least. SGA, when asked about the scuffle, simply said, "Playoff basketball. If you can't take the heat, get out the kitchen." Castle fired right back. "We'll see about that come Game 4. And social media? It absolutely combusted. Clips of the shoves went viral. Memes of Wemby's reaction were everywhere. Fans were arguing for days about the flagrant calls and whether the refs lost control of the game. But one thing was for certain. This series was no longer friendly. It was personal. The respect was gone. And after what we just witnessed, you better believe Game 4 is going to be even worse. So as we wrap this up, I gotta ask you, did you feel it? Did you feel your heart racing? Did you feel like you were right there in that building, sweating bullets with every possession? Because this Game 3 was a reminder of why we love playoff basketball so much. It's not always pretty. It's not always clean. But it's raw. It's emotional. It's two teams willing to die for every single inch. The Spurs may have lost this battle, but the war is far from over. OKC leads the series 2-1, but San Antonio is coming back home with a vengeance. And if this game taught us anything, it's that the next one could very well break the internet all over again. So tell me in the comments, who do you think wins Game 4 after all of this chaos? Are you riding with the young Spurs? Or are you taking the experienced Thunder? But until then, remember one thing. In the playoffs, it's never just a game. It's personal. And after Game 3 of Spurs and OKC, we all learned that the hard way. So I'll catch you on the next one.